From an early age, women are taught that being nice is the key to acceptance, love, and respect. They are encouraged to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, and to always put others before themselves. Society romanticizes the idea of the kind, selfless woman who gives endlessly without expecting anything in return. She is praised for her patience, her ability to forgive, and her unwavering support. This conditioning leads many women to believe that the more they give, the more they will be valued in return. But reality does not work that way. Instead of being appreciated for their kindness, many women find themselves being taken for granted. They begin to realize that their niceness does not bring them love or respect. It often results in the exact opposite. When a woman is overly nice in a relationship, she unconsciously sends a message that she does not require effort to be kept. She is always available, always accommodating, always ready to overlook mistakes. At first, this might make her seem desirable. After all, who wouldn't want someone who gives unconditionally? But over time, this very trait that seems so appealing begins to diminish her value in the eyes of others. Men, like all human beings, value what they must work for. When something is given too easily, it is rarely appreciated. This is why women who constantly sacrifice their own needs to accommodate a man often find themselves being treated as an afterthought. They do everything they can to make him happy, yet he barely acknowledges their efforts. The more she gives, the less he values her. This cycle is not about men being intentionally cruel. It is simply human nature. People respect what they have to put effort into keeping. When a woman constantly compromises her own needs, when she makes herself too accessible, she eliminates the challenge. She eliminates the need for effort. She eliminates the excitement that comes from knowing that something valuable can be lost. This is why men are often drawn to women who maintain strong boundaries. A woman who is not afraid to say no, who expects effort, and who does not settle for being taken for granted, is the one who commands respect. It is not about playing games. It is about having enough self-respect to demand better. Niceness without boundaries leads to resentment. A woman who constantly prioritizes others over herself will eventually feel drained and unappreciated. She may wonder why her kindness is not being reciprocated. She may feel frustrated that, despite giving so much, she is not being treated with the same level of care. But the problem is not her kindness. The problem is the lack of boundaries that come with it. Being nice is not the issue. Being nice without self-respect is. Respect is not earned by being overly accommodating. It is earned by having a sense of self-worth. A woman who knows her value does not tolerate disrespect. She does not stay silent when something bothers her. She does not allow fear of losing someone to keep her in situations that do not serve her. She understands that a man who truly values her will step up, because she will not settle for less. This shift in mindset changes everything. The moment a woman stops trying to earn love through self-sacrifice, she begins to attract men who respect her. She stops chasing validation and starts demanding reciprocity. She stops fearing loss and starts prioritizing herself. Women often stay in situations where they feel unappreciated because they believe that if they just try a little harder, things will change. They assume that their patience will eventually be rewarded. But relationships do not work that way. Love and respect are not given to those who give the most. They are given to those who expect the best. A woman who accepts the bare minimum will always receive the bare minimum. A woman who requires effort will always receive effort. Setting boundaries does not mean being rude. It does not mean being unkind. It simply means valuing oneself enough to walk away from situations that do not serve one's best interest. It means understanding that relationships should be mutual, not one-sided. It means recognizing that love is not something that should be begged for. It is something that should be freely given. The truth is, men do not fall for women who are excessively nice. They fall for women who challenge them. They fall for women who have self-respect, who have standards, who are willing to walk away if they are not being treated well. This is not about manipulation. It is about maintaining one's dignity. It is about understanding that a healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, not on one person constantly giving while the other takes. When a woman shifts her mindset from trying to be liked to demanding respect, everything changes. She no longer tolerates disrespect. She no longer gives endlessly without receiving anything in return. She no longer fears setting boundaries. And when she makes this shift, the right kind of men begin to take notice. The ones who previously took her for granted suddenly start making an effort. The ones who once assumed she would always be there begin to realize that she is not someone they can afford to lose. This transformation is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming the best version of oneself. It is about stepping into confidence, embracing self-worth, and refusing to settle for anything less than what one deserves. Because at the end of the day, the key to being valued is not about how much one gives. It is about how much one values oneself. A woman's kindness is one of her greatest strengths. But when it is given without boundaries, it becomes a weakness that others can exploit. Too often, women are conditioned to believe that being nice is the key to maintaining relationships. They are taught that if they just love harder, give more, and sacrifice enough, the people in their lives, especially men, will recognize their worth and reciprocate. But life does not work that way. The reality is that people, including men, do not value what comes too easily. If a woman continuously bends over backward for a man, never expects him to meet her halfway, and always puts his needs before her own, she is not inspiring love. She is setting herself up to be taken for granted. And when a woman is overly nice to a man, she might think she is showing love, but what she is really doing is removing the challenge and excitement from the relationship. Men, like all humans, are wired to value things that require effort. If something is easily accessible at all times, it is rarely seen as valuable. This is why women who expect effort from men, who do not tolerate disrespect, and who set clear boundaries are often the ones who command the most admiration. It is not because they are mean or difficult. It is because they understand their worth. They do not allow themselves to be treated as an afterthought. Niceness alone is not what makes a woman desirable or respected. In fact, being too nice can sometimes have the opposite effect. If a woman is constantly saying yes, always forgiving without consequence, and making herself available at a man's convenience, she is sending a subconscious message that she has no expectations. And when there are no expectations, there is no incentive for effort. A man who knows that he can do the bare minimum and still receive a woman's time, energy, and affection will have no reason to step up. Over time, he may even lose interest, because the relationship has become too easy, too predictable, and too one-sided. A woman who commands respect understands that setting boundaries is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of self-love. She does not give endlessly in the hopes of receiving something in return. Instead, she gives within limits. She prioritizes her own well-being. She recognizes that if a man truly cares for her, he will meet her at her level, instead of expecting her to lower her standards to accommodate him. This shift in mindset changes everything. When a woman stops being overly nice and starts requiring effort, the dynamic in her relationships transforms. She is no longer the one chasing, proving her worth, or waiting for a man to appreciate her. Instead, she stands in her power, knowing that the right man will recognize her value without her having to beg for it. One of the biggest mistakes women make is assuming that they need to be liked in order to be loved. They believe that by being agreeable, forgiving, and endlessly giving, they will win a man's heart. But in reality, respect is far more important than likability. A woman who is respected will always hold a man's attention, while a woman who is simply nice without self-respect will often be overlooked. This is because respect commands effort. It creates a dynamic where a man knows he has to step up if he wants to keep her. Being respected does not mean being cold or unkind. It simply means having standards and refusing to compromise them for the sake of someone else's comfort. It means understanding that love is not about sacrificing one's own happiness in order to make someone else happy. It means recognizing that true connection is built on mutual effort, not on one person giving while the other takes. A woman who stops being overly nice does not suddenly become mean. She becomes clear about what she will and will not tolerate. She does not accept half-hearted effort, mixed signals, or inconsistency. She does not tolerate disrespect disguised as just how he is. She does not justify bad behavior with excuses like, maybe he's just busy, or he'll change if I'm patient. She understands that a man who truly cares will show it through his actions, not just his words. This shift in mindset also changes the way a woman views rejection. When she no longer operates from a place of needing to be liked, she stops fearing the loss of people who do not respect her. She understands that walking away from a situation that does not serve her is not a loss, it is a gain. It is the removal of something that was preventing her from receiving the respect and love she truly deserves. Women who struggle with setting boundaries often fear that if they stop being overly nice, they will lose people. And they might, but only the ones who were never truly invested in the first place. The people who are only around because of what they can take from a woman's kindness will naturally drift away when they realize that they can no longer manipulate her generosity. But the people who truly care will stay. The right man will step up when he sees that a woman values herself enough to expect the best. Men do not stay in relationships because a woman is nice. They stay because they respect her. They stay because they know that she is not someone who can be easily replaced. They stay because they recognize that she is a woman of value and they are willing to put in the effort to keep her. This is why women who know their worth never settle for less. They do not waste time chasing people who do not reciprocate. They do not tolerate disrespect disguised as love. They do not cling to relationships that drain them instead of fulfilling them. The moment a woman stops being overly nice and starts demanding respect, everything changes. She no longer plays the role of the caretaker in relationships where she receives nothing in return. She no longer wastes energy trying to prove her worth to people who do not appreciate her. Instead, she focuses on herself, on her growth, her happiness, and her own well-being. She understands that her time and energy are valuable, and she chooses to invest them only in people who recognize that. This shift is not about becoming someone else. It is about stepping into one's true power. It is about understanding that kindness should never come at the expense of self-respect. It is about recognizing that true love and respect are not earned by giving endlessly. They are earned by knowing one's worth and refusing to settle for anything less. A woman's value is not determined by how much she sacrifices for others, especially in relationships where her kindness is taken for granted. Too many women operate under the belief that being overly nice is the way to win a man's heart. But the reality is quite different. Men are not drawn to women who make everything easy for them. They are drawn to women who command respect, set standards, and have a sense of self-worth that does not depend on anyone else's validation. When a woman decides to stop being overly nice and instead focuses on her own happiness, she begins to see the truth about the relationships in her life. She notices who was truly there for her and who was only benefiting from her generosity. She realizes that being constantly available, always forgiving, and endlessly giving did not make people love her more. It made them take her for granted. And that is a hard truth to accept. But once she does, everything changes. One of the most powerful shifts happens when a woman understands that her time, energy, and love are valuable. She begins to see that not everyone deserves unlimited access to her. She stops feeling guilty for saying no. She recognizes that relationships should be balanced. Both people should contribute, both should make an effort, and both should feel valued. If she is the only one putting in the work, then it is not a relationship, it is an emotional burden. The key to changing this pattern is boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They do not shut people out. Instead, they create a structure that protects a woman's energy, self-esteem, and emotional well-being. A woman with boundaries does not allow herself to be treated as an afterthought. She does not let men come and go as they please. She does not tolerate disrespect in any form, whether it is inconsistent behavior, mixed signals, or emotional manipulation. She knows that a man who truly wants to be in her life will respect her standards and rise to meet them. At first, setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially for women who have spent their lives being people-pleasers. The fear of rejection can be strong. What if he leaves? What if he thinks I'm being too difficult? What if no one else ever loves me? These thoughts are normal, but they are rooted in fear, not truth. The reality is, when a woman stops bending over backward for men who do not appreciate her, she does not lose love. She gains clarity. She starts to see who is really there for her. She realizes that the right man will not walk away just because she has standards. In fact, he will admire her even more for it. Another important aspect of this transformation is shifting from seeking validation to self-assurance. Women who are overly nice often rely on external approval to feel worthy. They seek reassurance from men, hoping that their kindness will be rewarded with love and commitment. But this approach rarely works. When a woman constantly seeks validation from a man, she gives away her power. She becomes dependent on his attention, his affection, and his approval to feel good about herself. And that is a dangerous position to be in, because it means her self-worth is in someone else's hands. A woman who truly values herself does not need a man to tell her she is worthy. She already knows it. She does not need constant reassurance. She is secure in who she is. And because of this confidence, she naturally attracts men who respect her. She does not chase, she does not beg, and she does not settle. Instead, she focuses on her own happiness, her own goals, and her own growth. And in doing so, she becomes a woman of high value. Men are naturally drawn to women who know their worth. This is not about playing games or pretending to be something she is not. It is about genuinely understanding that her presence is a privilege, not a convenience. A woman who operates from this mindset does not waste time with men who do not appreciate her. She does not sit around waiting for a man to change. She does not accept breadcrumbs of attention. She does not make excuses for poor behavior. Instead, she holds her head high and moves forward, knowing that she deserves more. One of the most liberating realizations a woman can have is understanding that love should never feel like a constant struggle. It should not require endless proving, sacrificing, or waiting. The right man will not make her question her worth. He will not string her along, make her feel small, or expect her to accept less than she deserves. Instead, he will respect her, cherish her, and meet her at her level. However, in order for a woman to attract this kind of love, she must first embody it herself. She must treat herself with the same respect she expects from others. She must set standards and stick to them. She must learn to be comfortable walking away from situations that do not serve her. And most importantly, she must understand that being nice is not the same as being valuable. True value comes from self-respect, self-love, and the ability to know when enough is enough. Women who embrace this mindset find that their entire approach to relationships changes. They stop tolerating inconsistency. They stop over-explaining themselves. They stop feeling the need to prove their worth to men who should have seen it from the beginning. They become more selective, not because they are difficult, but because they understand that they deserve a love that matches their effort. And this shift does not just affect romantic relationships. It affects every area of life. When a woman stops being overly nice, she starts prioritizing herself. She starts saying no to things that drain her. She stops allowing people to take advantage of her generosity. She becomes more confident in her decisions, more secure in her worth, and more focused on what truly makes her happy. In the end, the goal is not to become cold or unkind. The goal is to balance kindness with self-respect. A woman can be compassionate without being a doormat. She can be loving without sacrificing herself. She can be giving without allowing herself to be used. The key is knowing where to draw the line, understanding that her needs, feelings, and well-being matter just as much as anyone else's. This transformation is not easy, but it is necessary. And once a woman steps into her power, she never looks back. She no longer chases people who do not value her. She no longer tries to fix relationships that are not serving her. Instead, she walks forward with confidence, knowing that the right people, the ones who truly respect and appreciate her, will meet her at her level. And that is the true power of choosing self-respect over blind kindness. When a woman stops being overly nice to men and starts prioritizing herself, a profound transformation takes place, not just in her relationships, but in her entire life. She no longer feels the need to constantly accommodate others, to prove her worth through self-sacrifice, or to seek external validation. Instead, she steps into her power, embraces her value, and starts living life on her own terms. This shift is not about becoming rude, unkind, or indifferent. It is about recognizing that being too nice, too accommodating, and too forgiving often leads to being taken for granted. Women who have spent their lives people-pleasing understand this deeply. They know what it feels like to always put others first, to give without receiving, and to hope that their kindness will be appreciated, only to realize that it is often exploited. But once a woman wakes up to this reality, she can never unsee it. She starts noticing the patterns in her relationships, the way some men take advantage of her softness, the way they expect her to tolerate their inconsistency, the way they assume she will always be there no matter how they treat her. And at some point, she decides that enough is enough. And it describes one of the biggest realizations that comes with this shift is understanding that respect is far more important than blind devotion. A woman who respects herself does not tolerate disrespect from others. She does not excuse bad behavior, she does not accept mixed signals, and she does not cling to relationships that drain her. Instead, she sets clear boundaries and enforces them without guilt. She understands that it is not her job to fix, heal, or change a man. Her only responsibility is to herself. This self-respect is magnetic. Men notice it immediately. They see the difference between a woman who will tolerate anything and a woman who demands respect. And ironically, the very men who once took her for granted often come running back once she withdraws her energy. They sense that something has changed. She is no longer waiting, no longer hoping, no longer bending over backward to make things work. And that is when they start to realize what they lost. But by then, it is often too late. Because once a woman has truly embraced her worth, she does not look back. She no longer wastes time on men who cannot meet her at her level. She no longer invests in relationships that leave her feeling drained. Instead, she focuses on herself, on her goals, her happiness, and her growth. And that is when she truly starts to thrive. She discovers passions she had put on hold. She starts pursuing her dreams without worrying about whether a man approves. She surrounds herself with people who genuinely support her, rather than those who only show up when it is convenient for them. She starts living for herself, rather than living to be chosen. This newfound confidence radiates in everything she does. She walks differently, speaks differently, and carries herself with an energy that commands respect. She no longer needs validation because she has found it within herself. She no longer fears being alone because she knows she is enough. And because of this, she attracts a completely different type of energy into her life. The right kind of man, the one who truly values her, will be drawn to this version of her. He will not play games, send mixed signals, or take her for granted. He will respect her boundaries, appreciate her strength, and match her effort. He will not try to control her, break her down, or make her feel small, because he will recognize that she is not a woman who can be easily manipulated. But the truth is, by the time she reaches this level of self-awareness, she is no longer searching for validation through relationships. She is no longer desperate for love because she has found it within herself. And that is the most powerful position to be in. Because when a woman no longer depends on a man for her happiness, she becomes truly free. Free to walk away from anything that does not serve her. Free to choose herself, even when it is difficult. Free to demand more from life, because she knows she deserves it. This transformation does not happen overnight. It takes time, healing, and deep self-reflection. But once it happens, there is no going back. The woman who once accepted less than she deserved, who once believed she had to be endlessly nice to be loved, is gone. In her place stands a woman who is strong, confident, and unapologetically herself. And that is the kind of woman who truly wins in the end, not because she played the game better, but because she refused to play it at all. She chose herself, and in doing so she became unstoppable.